Jason, tell us about you, why you're running, and yeah.
So, thank you, first off, for hosting this, right? It's a great opportunity to just have a conversation, let people know who I am and what I stand for. You know, this is a very non-partisan position, so we're not going to bring politics into any discussions today or anything like that. You know, one thing I want to make sure that everyone here knows is when I started my campaign, I said, if anybody invited me to something or asked me to show up or asked me to speak, and I had the commitment at the time to do it, I was going to do it. And that's one thing you'll get from me if I am elected to the school board, is you'll always have my ear. I am not naive to think that we will agree on, maybe we may not agree on anything, but one thing that you will always get is an opportunity to speak to me and for you to have your voice heard by somebody on the school board. So, myself, really quick, you know, if you've seen any of my videos or you follow me on Facebook or anything like that, you know, I'm married. My wife came in support tonight. May not have any other supporters in the room, but I have my wife. Thank you. She said she wasn't going to vote for me because she didn't know if she wanted me to be on. But we had 3 kids. My oldest one graduated a couple years ago, and he's going to school at UMHB playing baseball. And then I have a junior that's at Belton High School, and then my daughter attends Belton Middle School. So, you know, that's kind of the gist of who I am. But what I really wanted to do is people that I've spoken to and know about me. That's the stuff that you all know. But one thing I wanted to share was something that you may not know about me. I love golf, so if you ever need a partner in golf, you can always call me. And then the other thing that I love to do as a hobby is I love officiating high school football and college football. So I'm a football official on Friday and Saturdays. So that's one thing that maybe you guys didn't know about me. So if you ever wondered how thick my skin is, it's pretty thick. I can take criticism. I can take it when people don't agree with me, and I can take it when they do agree with me. So anyway, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, we'll move on to our first question. So the first question is about the budget. So the dollars and cents of the school board. What would you increase in the budget? What would you decrease? What would you change? And what are some of the details you may agree with?
So what some of you may know is we have a $141 million budget. I don't claim to know everything about the budget. You know, BISD has a whole department that's all they do, is they manage the budget. You know, transparency on our budget is on the BISD website, and anybody can go and look at it and see what's in the budget. So when you ask me, you know, what I would change about the budget or what I would look for in the budget, you know, with my career in banking. So for you that don't know, I'm in banking. I'm in mortgage banking. So we may talk about growth later or anything like that. But in mortgage banking, one thing that goes hand in hand with that is if we don't have growth, I don't have a job. So growth and mortgages go hand in hand. So I'm 100% behind anything growth that will help our community. But when we talk about what specifically I would change, I really would like to dig in more into the budget to know exactly. But when you on the outset you look at, you know, where are we spending, you know, where are we spending our money? You know, I managed a mortgage team that did over $500 million last year, right? And so when you close over $500 million in homes, that means you turn down a lot more than that. And so one thing that with my sales team in the mortgage division, we had to make some hard decisions on who could get a house and who couldn't. But it took a lot of deep dives into looking at, you know, credit and liabilities and debts. And I would take that same mindset when I go in to look at a budget for the school. You know, we 85% of our budget goes to staffing and stuff like that. And I would really like to dig in to find out, why is it 85% and not 70%? And some of those workshops and stuff that you've been involved in with being a trustee, you'll get to learn a lot of that. And so I really look forward to taking my business acumen into a true workshop so I can actually dig in and find out more about what's in the budget. So.
Okay, so going with that, a topic that comes up pretty regularly for school boards are bonds. In the state of Texas, you have to pass a bond to build a school. So what is your position on bonds? How often do you think we need to pass bonds? And really, what should be in those bonds?
Number one, bonds are not a bad thing, right? People get scared when they say, we got to pass a bond, we got to pass a bond, we got to pass a bond. Bonds are not bad things when they're done responsibly, right? When they're done, when they're needed, right, and not necessarily too early or too late, right? We gotta plan ahead and plan accordingly. And parents and taxpayers and community members need to know what's in those bonds. They need to know how much it's going to cost exactly, including interest, including whatever else that goes into that. So taxpayers need to know complete transparency of what's in those bonds. Are we going to have to pass bonds in the future? Yes, we will. We have another high school that's going to be coming in the next 5 to 10 years. How are we going to pay for that? And so the state, I think is passing or trying to get some more school funding to help build more facilities, and hopefully the ISDs can get some of that extra revenue that the state has. But bonds are not a bad thing, number one, and we just have to make sure that when we do pass it, it's complete transparency. And just when we pass it, we just have to make sure it's the right time and it's fiscally responsible. And it doesn't put too much burden on just the taxpayers. Sorry, I'm gonna go a little longer since I'm the only one here today. But we have to also make sure that when I say we can't put too much burden on the taxpayers, we have to make sure that we are doing our best with our cities to bring in more businesses to help relieve some of that tax burden on some of our taxpayers. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. So you mentioned we're going to have a new high school. And so the next question we have is about growth, about the long-term growth of the district. Belton ISD, it's growing and it's not going to stop for probably a very long time. So how do you handle that and how do you let that not take over the whole focus of the ISD?
Yeah, so when I talk to superintendent or I talk to other board members, the thing that keeps them up at night is how can they be ahead of that growth? Because like you said, growth is gonna happen. We can't stop it, right? I mean, so we have to, as a board, ensure that we're looking far enough ahead so that we can anticipate where that growth is gonna come from and how we adapt and make sure that we have a good, responsible seat for every single student in our school.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So shifting gears from the dollars and cents to security. So especially with Uvalde, that was really close with us, but really a lot of the school shootings that have happened over the past couple of years, security is on the mind of a lot of parents. So how would you, or number one, what do you think of Belton ISD security as it is right now, and then how would you improve it?
So security is, if it's not the top priority, it's gotta be the top priority. Because if our kids don't feel safe at school, then we've all lost, right? Because they're not gonna learn if they're scared. And so BISD is, in my opinion, has done a good job of ensuring that we are as safe as we possibly can at this point. Can we improve? 100% we can improve. We can improve a lot of areas. But overall, when you talk about school shootings, we had an incident last year. Just a terrible incident that happened last year. But I will tell you that every parent in the school district knew within minutes that there was an incident that was going on. And so they took action as quickly as possible as they could. And when I say that, transparency and that kind of stuff, that can go a long ways with ensuring that our schools are safe. And when I ask my daughter or son when they leave in the mornings, do you guys feel safe at school? And they say yes. That makes you as a parent feel a little bit better, right? But again, we can improve different areas of that, right? And I've got some ideas and stuff, and I'd love to be a part of a discussion that helps us even improve even more of the school safety.
All right, so the next is getting into kind of the nuance of like school resource officers and peace officers and stuff like that. So there's a few different models. Like Killeen has their own police department, right? Because they're such a big school district. Probably not a thing for Belton, but there's also the choice between putting peace officers in schools and putting SROs in schools. Where do you fall on that line, and what do you think is the best way forward for Belton?
So, you said Killeen, is really big, and they have their own police department. I don't know, Belton may not be big enough to have their own police department, but it's certainly something we could look at and explore. I don't know if it's even feasible or not, but it should be an option that's on the table. But when you talk about SROs or peace officers or anybody like that, I am a big fan of having an armed security guard of some point in every school, right? I think we need that for the safety of all of our kids, and I'm a big supporter of that bill. What I'm not a supporter of, and I think when you talk about arming teachers or anything like that, I'm not sure I'm 100% behind that, because I think our teachers already have a hard enough job without trying to have them armed. I think we can do better by having a peace officer or another SRO or somebody like that on every campus.
All right, thank you. So the next part of the security is kind of coordination with the police departments. So Belton ISD spans 3 police departments. You got the sheriff's department, you got Belton PD, and you have Temple PD. So how are you on the school board gonna work with those 3 separate entities to get response times faster for if the worst were to happen?
Yeah, so you're right. We have multiple police departments, and from what I know, we have a good working relationship with all of our police departments. Could we use a little faster response time in some of those cases? Yes, but that's where training between the schools and the police departments come in and play a big factor, right? We have to make sure that we're setting the proper expectations with our schools and our police departments for that training, because even 30 seconds, if heaven forbid, something tragic happens on one of our campus, 30 seconds might save 4 lives. So we have to do everything we can, and if we don't have an armed security guard in every campus, of making sure that we cut down some of those response times from our police department and continue that great working relationship that we have with them. If I go to my son's high school, you'll usually see a police car out front, and they're there, but they can't be there full time. And so we have to make sure that we're supplementing those police departments, because that is a big drain off of a police department to have a Belton PD or a Temple PD on campus full time. So we just have to continue that working relationship and continue to build, because we do have a strong relationship, in my opinion, with our police departments.
Okay, awesome. So that kind of wraps up the security questions, and now we're going to move more into academic performance. So what do you think we should do to increase the academic performance of Belton ISD schools?
So when you talk about academics, academics is what we do, right? That we have to teach our kids how to read, write, do math. We have to ensure that every student that graduates is ready when they go out into the real world to have a career, or go to college, or go to military. And we can improve on that. We have to ensure that what we are doing is not lowering the bar for any of our students, and is continuing to raise the bar. We have a graduation rate of 95+%, but when you kind of look at some of the testing am I in a safe space? I hate the STAR test, but it's all we have, right? It's the only true measurement of where our students are. It's not, I say a true measurement, it's the measurement that we're grading on as a whole. So we have to make sure that, again, we're not lowering the bar. We're making sure that our teachers are teaching higher standards and expecting more from each and every student that is in their classroom. And so when we talk about, how do we test or how do we improve this, there's all kinds of different ways we could, incentivize our teachers, based on, how their classes are doing. We have to make sure that every kid can read by the time they're in third grade. Because if they can't read by the time they're in third grade, a lot of times I think statistics will show you that they won't be able to read well enough when they graduate either. And so, it starts early elementary when we start talking about accountability and grading and testing and that kind of stuff. So it just starts early, and we just have to make sure that no matter what we're doing, we're holding every student to the highest possible standard. And if we do that across the board, everything will increase.
Okay, that's awesome. And so you kind of went into our next question about what measures of performance are the best. So we have, like, parents look at a lot, right? Parents look at STAR test scores, they look at, graduation rates, they look at college admission rates, they look at, if there's something that can be measured, it is measured for high schools. So which of those measurements will you look at the most to see if y'all are improving or getting worse in Belton ISD?
All of them. I mean, you really have to, you can't just take one test and determine whether your school is failing or passing. But unfortunately, that's the way the state looks at it, right? They take, basically one test and determine how good the school is. But you really have to look at all of it. We don't want to over-test our kids, but we don't want to make, everything we do in grading and policy and accountability to be based on one day of one test. So we've got to measure our whole academic success on a lot of different testing models, and hopefully at some point somewhere down the road we will get away from everything counting on one test and grading this on one test.
All right, thank you. So moving into the specifics on curriculum. So obviously, one of the big responsibilities of a school board is to determine curriculum. So are there classes you think you would like to add? Are there classes you would like to take away? Are there changes in the curriculum you would like to see? What are really the curriculum things that stand out to you?
So again, curriculum is what we do, right? I mean, we have to make sure that what we are teaching is stuff that's going to help the student when they graduate. Not every student, and I'll be the first to tell you, not every student is going to go to college. So what are we doing to make sure that those students are enjoying their high school career? What other classes can we add? Vocational, technical, arts and sciences. What else can we add? And I think we can add all those. We're a big school district. We should have those opportunities for every single student that's at our school. So when you say what should we add to curriculum, I think we should add all of it. Because we have the ability, we're a big enough school that we can add the vocational, extra vocational. Because again, a student that feels safe and encouraged when they're at school will be a success when they graduate. And that's what the whole purpose of a public education is to make sure that we are putting good, educated citizens into our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. So a big topic is how to deal with special groups of kids. So when I say special groups of kids, I mean we have special education, we have gifted and talented, we have special focus on arts kids, stuff like that. So how would you deal with those special groups of outlier kids?
So I'll take a little personal story. I've got one of my kids is what we would call the GT kid. He's top 2 or 3% in his class. He fluctuates between 2 and 3%. But so I always say he's one of those. But what I don't want happening is him being put into a certain group that's going to lower his expectations and his capabilities of learning to that next level. So do I think we need to separate high schools into a gifted and talented high school and a special ed high school or anything like that? No. But we need to make sure that the classes, the dual credit classes, those classes he's taken, and I'm not smart enough to remember the classes he's taken. I couldn't even do his math when he was in the 3rd grade. So some of those, we just want to make sure that we're doing the best we can for those GT students. When we talk about special ed, people come to Belton ISD because of our special ed program. We have, in my opinion, and probably most people's opinion, we have the best special ed program. I put it so with the whole state because we have the best program. Can we improve it? Yes, because those special ed teachers have one of the hardest jobs in our whole school. So what areas can we improve in that? Maybe giving them a little extra an aid or stuff like that. But we have to also make sure that whatever we're doing for that special ed program, it's making those kids in that program even better to attract more of those students because we have a great program in special ed.
Awesome. So moving away from curriculum, sometimes the school board will put out guidance, and then you'll have activists, administrators, or teachers who just go against that guidance. How would you deal with that as a board member?
So give me an example of guidance that you may be talking about.
So I'm talking curriculum. Like, what if a English teacher starts teaching Harry Potter instead of Charles Dickens?
Yeah, so the curriculum has to be a standard curriculum across the board. And teachers need to know what their expectations are up front. And I think truly, if you have the administrator support on campus, the principals and the people that are on campus, and they set those right expectations up front, those teachers will know. And when they veer off of teaching that exact curriculum and more into their opinion or their ideologies or anything like that, we have to have campus coordinators and administrators that are not afraid to pull that rein back in and make sure that we are teaching the true facts of whatever curriculum is, whether it's history, science, math, whatever it is. We have to make sure that we have the teachers that are going to do it, and we have the administrators that have their back when they do it.
Okay, perfect. So moving on, dealing with parents. How would you, if a parent comes to you with a problem as a board member, how would you deal with that?
So I'm a parent, right? Every parent in the district deserves a voice, and every parent deserves to have the right to be listened to. Whether or not we agree on it, they at least deserve and have the right to be heard. Because they are taxpayers too, and they have their kids in the schools. And when you talk about the hierarchy of a school district, it starts with the parents in the community that elects a board of trustees. And then at that point, so when you say how do you deal with a parent, you have to listen. Because lots of parents have great ideas that you may not as a trustee have thought about. And so if you don't give them the opportunity to voice their opinion, and you have to make sure that whatever opinion that is, it is respectful when you are voicing that opinion, because a lot of times you can lose trustees' opinion, or you can lose trustees' attention when that becomes disrespectful. And so it's okay to disagree. That's what this country is founded on, right? It's okay to disagree with your board member. It's okay to disagree with a parent in a room, but you have to do it respectfully. And as a trustee, you have to be open to listening to every parent, no matter what the discussion is.
All right, so our next question you mentioned a couple times, but really going into how would you increase transparency and communication on the school board?
By having an open ear, right? By giving the parents the voice. Transparency, there's sometimes when you look at our website, right? It's not, everything's on there. If you want to know about something, most of the time it's on there. And there's many people in this room that I know exactly how to go find that. I don't. And you know, I feel like I'm pretty smart. So we have to make sure that whatever it is, the parents know exactly where to go and find that information. We have to make sure that, you know, like I talked about in safety earlier, you know, we do a great job when we've had lockdowns on campus. You know, immediately, my wife and I will get a text message or something that says, hey, kids are on lockdown, you know, no need to be alarmed, or you know, there's been an incident on campus like we mentioned earlier. But we have to even improve those even more, right? And I don't know what steps we could take to improve it more, but it can stand some improvement. And you know, when you come into a situation that is being discussed, whether it's a new policy or anything like that, I'm in favor of, personally, I'm in favor of less closed session stuff and more open session stuff. And so that way the transparency is out in front of you guys. So you know what's being talked about. Now there's some stuff you have to go into closed session for. When you're talking about a child or you're talking about HR issues, you have to go into some closed sessions for stuff like that. But there's a lot of stuff that you don't have to go into closed session for, and you can discuss that in public, and that's where I would like to see our board maybe move. If I'm on the board, I will push to try and have a little bit more of that open dialogue and that open discussion.
All right, that's awesome. So teacher shortages. Teacher shortages are happening all across the country right now. How would you deal with the teacher shortages in Belton ISD and the relatively high turnover of teachers?
So one thing that I've learned in talking to teachers a lot over the last few months is teachers are not leaving because they're not paid enough. I mean, that's one factor, but teachers are really leaving or getting out of the field because it's become too hard. It's become too hard to deal with parents, right? Sometimes, and it's too hard to deal with some of the administrators that may not have their back when they do have an issue in the classroom, or they do have a discipline issue that they need to address. And so we have to make sure that we're addressing those. And income does need, I mean, our teachers deserve more pay, right? And when you talk about a profession, I can't think of a higher profession than a teacher. And so military, but even your military guys had a teacher at one point that taught them how to act right. And so we need more qualified teachers that can actually come in, and we need more transparency with you know what's going on in the school. As far as, you know, we need more principal support behind the scenes that has the teachers back. And if you fix those, I think you fix a lot of the retention issues. You know, we have a lot of students graduate every single year. You know, we'll graduate 600 out of Belton High School, and we'll graduate another 600 out of Lake Belton. There's a lot of those kids that will go to school to be teachers. How do we get those kids to come back and want to teach in a Belton ISD? So, you know, I think there's some programs we could probably look at and implement, and I'd love to be a part of those discussions as well, because there are some opportunities to bring back some great teachers that love Belton ISD.
Yeah, absolutely. So when talking to parents, there seems to be a big issue with kids using cell phones and kids having earbuds in class and generally being just not engaged in the classroom. What are some of the strategies you would use to kind of combat that?
So my daughter's not in here. So I told my daughter, I said, you know, we need to get cell phones out of schools. And she said, well, I will not vote for you, Dad. So now, do we need to take that extreme? No. But when I have a son that, and I'll tell you another personal funny story. When I have a son that asked to borrow my AirPods to take to school for one particular day, and I thought it was weird. And I said, "Why do you need my AirPods?" He said, "Because I'm going to watch the new season of Outer Banks." I was like, "In school?" But we have teachers that are allowing that, and so we have to get back to teachers being teachers and being the adult in the room, and making sure that that's not how we're conducting class each and every day. So taking cell phones completely out of school, no. That's not realistic. But we need to have more discipline around the activities that go on in the classroom around cell phones.
Okay, awesome. So one of the hot topics of Belton ISD over the past year or two has been the process of challenging books that are in libraries. So what do you think about that process, and do you think any changes need to be made, or they've kind of found a happy medium?
Yes, changes need to be made. I am, when book banning comes up a lot, right? It's people say, you just want to ban books. Well, no, I don't think anybody wants to ban books. But what we do as parents want to ban pornography in our schools. That does not have any business being in our school. We have a policy in place. It's very hard. It's very cumbersome. A parent has to actually find the book, take it to a library, and it's a whole process. But when you come across a book that's got graphic detail, complete acts of the sexual acts that's going on in the book, why is it taking us this long to get that book out?
Yeah.
And I think what's happening is we have a school board, and I've talked to almost every one of the members on the school board. They don't want those books in the library as well. But what's happening is, what I feel is happening is they're looking at it as far as the repercussions before they pull it out.
Yeah.
Where my view and my stance is, let's get it out and deal with the repercussions later.
Yes.
So that's the one thing I would want to change and look at is, and I truly, honestly believe that if we pull those books out as a school board, we pull them out immediately, we're not going to have repercussions. Those books. Now, you want to challenge some other books that you may not ideology, is that the right word? Anyway, that you may not agree with, then challenge that book and let it work through the process, but not pornography.
Gotcha. Well, thank you. So that's all of my questions. So now we're gonna go to the audience. We have about 10 more minutes for audience questions. So I'm gonna look at y'all. Do y'all have any questions for Jason? Right here.
Yeah, I normally don't jump right in, but since you're on the topic of libraries, I've always thought, how about we have a list of books that ought to be in the library that have been taken out over the years, good classic books that have just been sold in book sales, and now we got junk in there.
Yeah.
And much less
Yeah.
pornography and the LGBTQ stuff.
Yeah. So there are lots of great books that may not be in our library for our kids, that should be there. The good books like Mice and Men. I mean, some people are taking some of those kind of books out of the library. Why? And so, 100% agree. We as a school, we hire a vendor that places books in our schools. There's a bill that's going through the state right now that will put a lot of that onus onto book vendors to make sure that those kind of books are not in our library. And to your point, we hope that when they do pull those books off, because they will, when they pull those books off, that they're replacing them with good literature for those kids that want to read good books. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, my oldest son, and maybe my daughter too, but anyway, they don't even know what the library is. And so, but they're not the common, and so there are lots of kids that library books are important. That's their outlet. And we have to make sure that when they want to get that outlet, that they have good books. And if we don't have good books in our library, then we need to give them back, right?
Absolutely. Okay. So Jeff?
Several months ago, I was at a policy meeting, and they were discussing some changes and upgrades in schools. Some really good stuff they had done, modifying some buildings for some programs and stuff, and I applaud them for that. But there was a comment by one of the trustees that kind of struck me kind of odd, and that was, that's great. I can't wait to be invited down there to look at it. What are your thoughts? Do you think trustees be invited down to the schools, or is that a trustee's job to be down and in the schools?
So I'll speak, because I don't know that situation, but I will speak to, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected onto the school board, I should be able to walk into any school at any time, and I will. Because that's what a trustee does, is we are in charge of how those schools are operating. We have to make sure that when we report back to our superintendent, he knows what we've seen, and he knows what we as a school board expect. And if it's not happening in the schools, we have to make sure that we tell our superintendent, and he takes care of it. Because again, we're not in charge of individuals or anything like that that's in the schools. We're in charge of the superintendent. We have to make sure that our superintendent hears our voice as well, and he takes care of that kind of stuff. But the only way we're going to know that is if we are in the school, not just as an occasion. And I've told you guys that I've got 3 kids. I got 2 kids still in the schools. I'm at the schools all the time. I'm president of the Athletic Booster Club. I've been different committees and stuff at the school, and I'm on campus all the time. And trustees should be on the campus all the time. So they should not be invited down.
Thank you. So, in the middle, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I'll start with one, let's
Yeah.
see if we need to. So when you spoke about academic performance and you mentioned accountability, that's been something that's come up personally between me and the district recently. And I understand that the accountability that's available to parents right now is just the campus improvement plans on the website based on their STAR scores. However, can't find that on any website because again, as you said, it's difficult to navigate the BISD website. So anyways, going back to the only accountability they have for that is a campus improvement plan, what other accountability options would you be looking at or asking campus principals for improvements at their specific campuses?
Yeah, so the first thing you have to do is identify where the problem is, right? Because if you don't know where the problem is, you don't know where to go, who to go ask, or who to. And so the very first thing I would find out is when we do look at the accountability and the grading and the test scores, we need to have a good meeting with the superintendent and the principals. We need to have a good meeting and a good understanding of where we're missing the mark, right? Because if we're missing the mark and we're considered average, Belton ISD is not an average school. But if you look across the board, it looks like we're an average school. We are not average by any means. We are a great school district. But if we don't know where those problems are, and we don't know where, if it's a student learning problem, if it's a teacher teaching problem, if it's a socioeconomical problem, whatever it is. But if we don't know what that is, well, we can identify the schools, and usually we can identify all the way down to the teacher. So then we have to find out, what kind of improvement the principal can make. But we have to be able to identify exactly where the problem is before we can fix it.
Right over here.
Yeah, I'm gonna stand up. This feels pretty good. Okay, I don't know you, Jason, at all. I just literally looked like at your Facebook. I'm so glad you are here. I've had 3 kids come through Belton High School. They're 23, 21, and 19. So I've been doing this a long time. So I sort of feel like this was the kinder, gentler, nice meeting. I want to go, do you really have kids at Belton High School? Like, I'm the parent who will drop the turd in the punch bowl and say, you have to, this transparency that you're talking about, I want to know how you looked at how many times does our board vote unanimously? You will get sucked into the vortex of the good old boy system with this nice presentation. You will disappear. You will disappear in 6 months, and we'll be like, oh, there was Jason. He was a nice guy. Like, you need to know. You need to know how many police. You need to know Torres and McDonald's were the SROs at Belton High School a year ago, and the stabbing happened. You need to know that stuff. You need to know the chaos. No, it's not fine. On-level kids, it's chaos. I sent a video to the Shack meeting, which you can't find on the website. That's where parents, it's supposed to be parent-run according to the state of Texas. It was supposed to be put on, our legislator said, yes, we want parents in the schools writing the curriculum. I mean, I went to that meeting for probably 4 years. I was there longer than anybody else. And it was basically, it's always reinvent the same wheel. Belton just plays nice with everyone at their little meetings. They don't invite parents that are pissed off. They don't like people like me who got stuff into the paper years ago on the whole, they were doing the iPad in 6th grade and they got rid of the, I talked to somebody at the paper, I'm like, that's garbage. You're not gonna let my kid opt out and make everybody else take this class. So, there are so many issues. That transparency, I went to one of the board members and said, hey, I found out about this after the fact because my son didn't want to rat on his lifeguard coach. So I couldn't go to the principal. I found out about it 3 months later. This woman was, they fired her. They walked her off campus property by police for inappropriate relationships with students. My son was one of them. Did they ever tell me they were talking to these lifeguard boys about their relationship with that woman? Did they ever tell me the drugs in the lifeguard center were unreal? A board member, when I confronted her and said, hey, what about this lifeguard coach? She told me, oh, everybody knows she's Coach Henry's mistress. Oh, really? No, everyone doesn't know that. But that sure explains a lot, So I went to Coach Henry and I talked to him. Like, I sent a thing to the shack meeting on kids passing a vape in a physics class. Passing a vape in the class, they're all using it because one of my daughter's friends is videotaping, right? In the class. And I said, please tell me the teacher is on vacation and the sub is in the bathroom. No, the teacher's 20 feet away. She's 20 feet away and so I said that to everybody at the shack meeting. And I went to the meeting because there was a vape guy. He was a specialist from Waco. He was fantastic. And I was thrilled. I said to everybody, I am so glad we are discussing vaping because here's why we need it. Right? And then it was after that they finally put up the vape things in the bathrooms. Okay, but I sent that video, not one person mentioned it, not one person. I'm with the principal of Belton High School 3 weeks later about something else that happened, and we finished that meeting, and then she leaned over to me and she goes, next time you've got a video like that, will you send it to me first so we can deal with the discipline? There again, it's like Belton, it's like, we're not gonna talk about it out loud. We're not gonna talk about it in the community. We're not gonna basically say, this place is freaking burning down. It is. The pornography, the teachers, what do we do? How do I know you're gonna really look at background check? Did anybody but me report that lifeguard coach to Safe Swim, which had to deal with sexual, I know I did. I called TEA and said, you need to start an investigation on this woman. She should never teach kids again. What did Belton police? Oh, they don't have enough evidence to deal with anything here. Right? I mean, so that's the problem. It's burning down. I can't do nice.
Yeah.
I want to know, who have you really talked to? Like, where are the teachers are the people that are suffering. That poor teacher, they have given up. They don't get backed. Whether it's the phones or vaping or these AirPods. Do you know how many, when I found out about the drugs, my son played football, the drugs going around in the locker room, my God, these people are real. The drugs that get passed around. Remember the coach? Remember the protest? That was my son's year, the protest.
Do you have a question for him?
Do what?
Do you have a question?
Okay, my question is, when you talk about transparency, like, how are you going to be different than other board members told me they couldn't talk to me.
Mhm.
They couldn't talk to me.
Yeah.
How are you going to keep this whole idea, like, why can't we have back and forth dialogue?
Sure.
How will you make that happen?
Yeah. So thank you, Lane. I read your name tag and stuff. And I appreciate the question, right? Some of you know me personally and know that what you see, and this is not a facade. If I don't get elected, you know what? I mean, I'll still be a true advocate of Belton ISD. If I am elected, you're going to know exactly where I stand on every single issue. Whether that's bringing more town halls like this, where you guys can come and speak your mind and ask the questions, or if it's you picking the phone up and calling, you're gonna know exactly where I stand on everything, and I'm gonna speak my true voice, because again, what you see is what you get. If I don't get elected, I get my Mondays back, right? when you talk about, one of the very first things you said was everything is unanimous, everything is a 7-0 vote. It doesn't have to be a 7-0 vote. Somebody has to be able to stand up if they disagree with something, and it's okay to not have a 7-0 vote. If you truly stand on what you believe in, then stand up and say what you, and I may be a one-term trustee because I may stand up for everything I believe is right for our schools and my kids, because my kids are still going to be there for another 6 years. So.
Okay, we'll go to Dave, and then we'll come back over here.
The open borders thing is putting a lot of tax on virtually every school district in the country, not just, but I would assume that it's putting an even bigger tax on the school districts in Texas. How bad is it in our school district, and what are they doing with it?
So that's a great question. I would love to learn more about it. I cannot speak intelligently about that question about how many kids are in our schools because we have an open border. But I would love to learn more about that. And I apologize, I just can't speak intelligently to that question. We have to make sure that every kid that knocks on our door, because we are a public school, that we're giving them the same opportunity that we give my child who's been in the school for however long they've been in the school.
If they speak English.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would love to learn more about that. Yeah.
Do we have facilities for
Well,
non-English speakers?
We'll come back to you if we have time for your follow-up question. Yeah, let's go here, and then we'll move on.
My question, my second question.
Second question.
Yeah, is sort of addressed to you saying that you would listen to parents and communicate more with parents. And I've run into that roadblock with communicating with current board members, and the fact that it's written in their policy that only the board president will respond.
I don't know if that's written in the policy, but if you say it is, I have nothing to disagree with that. But the communication, like I've said the whole time, is what you're going to get from me is you're going to get it here. We may not agree on anything. And there's a lot of people in the room that I may not agree with anything that you guys have. But one thing I will tell you is you will get the respect and that you deserve for my ear. And you may convince me, if we disagree, you may convince me to follow on your side. But one thing that you got to know is we serve at the pleasure of our constituents and our parents. That's what we have to do. And the only way we can gain that trust is to ensure that every time my phone rings, or every time my inbox has an email from one of you, that it gets attention and it gets responded to.
Excellent.
Okay, so we have reached 7:30. This doesn't mean you have to go home. Jason will be here. I'm volunteering his time. Yeah. So you can ask him questions after this, and he'll personally answer you. So with that, I would like you to just wrap up, and then we can close this out.
So again, it's a great opportunity for me to get in front of you guys, right? Because this is truly what I believe, and this is truly what I see for Belton's future, is less of the conflict or the negativity or whatever it is. I truly want to see a more working relationship between the board and the parents. And so when you talk about what you will see and what I want to close with, is just know that I have a vested interest in ensuring our schools improve year after year after year. Because just like you guys in this room, you have kids that have either gone through this school or are going through this school. We have to make sure that every kid in the school matters. And every kid in the school, no matter what level of academics they are on, if they're on the lowest level or the highest level, that they all get and have the same opportunity that every kid in the school has. And so that's my promise, is I will fight every day on the school board to ensure that happens. I will fight every day to ensure that we are improving and I'm doing my best to improve and to leave a better spot than I found it. And so that's the one thing I would just want to leave you guys with is, again, I've said it a couple times, what you see up here is what you get. You know, Mack and I have known each other for only a couple months, but I don't think I've changed at all in anything I've done or said or anything like that. So I appreciate everybody that came. I mean, we got a great crowd. So I appreciate everybody that's here because you do also have that same vested interest to make sure that our schools continue to get better year after year. And I would just please ask that each of you, whether you vote for me or you vote for one of the other two candidates, show up, vote, and let's see how good we can improve Belton ISD. Because Belton ISD is a great school. We had great teachers. We had great administrators. We have some opportunities for improvement. And in a business like mine, you either improve or you don't. And if you don't improve, in the real world, you don't stay very long. So we have to make sure that we continue to improve everything that we do. Early voting starts April 24th. If each of you call 20 people and have 20 people show up to vote, we've got this thing wrapped. So that's what I encourage you guys to do. I'm Jason Wolfe. I'll be the second name listed on the ballot. Early voting is April 24th. And again, thank you because this was a great nonpartisan forum, town hall, and I appreciate the opportunity just to share my opinions and my voice.